Hello and welcome to another edition of Issues with Jide. Here we'll talk about actions and inactions of those who shape our political and national landscape, and those and how these impact us positively or otherwise. I'm Ibrahim Shita. Today on the show, Red Cross confirms massacre of 162 persons in Kwara as terrorists target southern Nigeria. Why U.S. troops moved into Nigeria will also be our second topic. And also on the show, Senate rejects real-time electronic transmission of results. In the course of the program, we take your questions, but first subscribe to our YouTube channel and drop your questions in the comment section. It's important to mention that we can only read comments with human names and the ones based on the subject matter. I have joining me Vazum, the maestro himself, Babajide Koladeo Tutoju. Good to see you, Bikil.
Good evening, Brian. I say good evening to our esteemed viewers.
That's right. Let's start off with our first issue for today. Nigeria has suffered a devastating security blow, and we see the Red Cross has also confirmed that at least 162 civilians were killed in a massacre in Kwara State, precisely Woro, in Kayama local government, which was attributed to militants amid widening insurgency threats across the country's middle belt and northwest. At the same time, U.S. troops and military support have entered Nigeria to assist counter-terrorism efforts. Given that, BKO, what specific gaps in Nigeria's own security apparatus do you think made these partnerships strategically important, and how much do you think the federal government has reacted in fighting these insurgents?
First, let's deal with the issue of the massacre of the innocent people, Kayama area of Kwara State, before we go to the matter of America and Nigeria working together, because they are two different issues, two different topics.
Absolutely.
So this the matter of the Americans are second topic. I think that what has enabled this group, first and foremost, I've been hearing people say this was carried out by Boko Haram and all that. There is a new terrorist that is an offshoot of Boko Haram that broke away from Boko Haram, and it is called Mamudawa. This is the terrorist group that carried out the attack that we are talking about. Mamudawa have been attacking rural villages and communities in Kwara North, close to the border with Bogu in Niger State. Remember, Bogu used to be part of Kwara State before it was broken up, and then it's now in Niger State. It is the largest local government in Nigeria at more than 10,000 square kilometers. So these guys operate from the Kainji Lake National Park. The Kainji Lake National Park has been abandoned for years. It is now some habitation for non-state actors, terrorists, bandits, and the rest of them. Sometime in April this year, the Mamudawa struck, killing a number of people in that same border between Niger and Kwara State. That's talking about the Baruba area. That was exactly on April 16th. That was when they struck. And they've been harassing the people, levying the people, forcing residents to work on their farms, kidnapping people in the area, getting involved in illegal mining, and collecting levies from people felling trees and collecting park levies. So for people who live in that area, they are familiar with the Mahmudawa. They know the people who attack them. But we continue to hear, oh, the Boko Haram group. No, this is wrong. This same thing happened somewhere in Kebbi, where the Lakurawas. The Lakurawas are very active in Kebbi and some parts of Sokoto State. The Lakurawas are a terrorist group that originates from Mali and Niger Republic, and some of them from Burkina Faso. So we have to really know those who are killing our people. Lakurawas are not active in this area. It is the Mahmudawas that are active. So this killing, and the Mahmudawas have been staying inside the Kainji Lake National Park for a long time because it's an expansive area. So they have freedom of action in that area, and it's from that area that they've been launching attacks on Nigerians. They also preach to the people and give them the feeling that their brand of Islam is the best. It is the same thing that Lakurawa was doing in the beginning in Kebbi and parts of Sokoto states. Sometimes even fighting cattle rustlers until they eventually became a full-blown terrorist group that the Nigerian armed forces are fighting in the Kebbi and Sokoto area as we speak. So they were said to have sent a message to the people of Woro and Kama local government area that they were coming to see them. At that point, the armed forces should have moved in quickly to protect the people. But that didn't happen. Usually when these letters are sent, people imagine that, look, it's just a mere threat to now. But they came and slaughtered the people. What we heard was that the people, they've seen that the people are reluctant to embrace their version of Islam, and that the people are not prepared to give up respect for the authority of the Nigerian state and swap that for the Mahmudawas. So they came, and very much like Boko Haram does, they opened fire on people who had not offended them. They targeted men, killing any man that they can see, tying people's arms behind their backs and opening fire on people. This was what they did. They didn't kill women, except the daughters of the traditional ruler of the community, who was lucky not to be around. So in anger, because they got there and they could not lay their hands on the traditional ruler, they decided to take the lives of his female children. That is the only place where it was recorded that they killed women. Otherwise, they were actually targeting the men in the community. As far as evidence can go, more than 160 people are already confirmed dead, and the Red Cross has confirmed that. Nigerian authorities talk about 75 dead, but the people dead far exceed that number. One thing that is also clear is that these terrorist groups are doing their best to move closer and closer, to the southwest, with the desire to eventually enter the southwest and continue the reign of terror that they've unleashed on our people in the north central and in the northwest and the northeast. So we are trying, through Kwara State, they are trying to enter into the southwest of Nigeria. They've been very active in parts of Kwara South, Owako, and other places. Even the border between Kogi and Kwara, Egbe, Isonlu, all of those areas are not safe. They have already recorded the tremendous presence of these bandits and terrorists. So their goal, their ultimate goal, is to enter the southwest of Nigeria, which is the only part of our country where anytime the Americans are giving travel advisory, they always leave out, because they believe that the kind of criminal activities that take place in other geopolitical zones don't happen in the southwest. But we've already seen terrorist attacks happening in those states, in Owo specifically. These are clear signs that terrorist groups are already moving closer and closer. Before now, attacks on Kwara North and Kwara South were not rampant, but we are now seeing consistent attacks in Kwara North and in Kwara South, leading even to the closure of the NYC orientation camp in Kwara State, which is located in Yikwata in Kwara North. And core members conducted their orientation and the Kwara State College of Kwara Polytechnic, just to be sure that the people were in safe hands. So the governors of the Southwest have to guard their loins. They have to do whatever it takes to protect Ondo State, which is like the gateway to the Southwest. Help reinforce security in Ondo State so that they do not come into the Southwest through Ondo State, because this is their goal. They've already, and based on the attacks that they are receiving from different parts of the northern Nigeria, they are now trying to run away from those attacks and move into the Southwest. So this is what is going on. A Boko Haram breakaway faction known as Mahmudawa is responsible for the killing of close to 200 people in 2 communities in Kayama local government area of Kwara State. And it reinforces the notion that jihadist insurgency is spreading its tentacles beyond the northeast of Nigeria and trying to gain some foothold in the southwest states of our country by targeting border communities and border states to the southwest, especially Kwara State at this time.
Right, interesting. So let's see. The other issue is now asking, how do you think the government has reacted? You know, how far-reaching are we being reactive? How much of intelligence are we putting on the ground, especially with this thing happening and the kind of pictures you've actually painted? You know, very scary to see that these people are closing in on us in the southwest. Are we doing much in order to stem the tide of this insurgency in the southwest and indeed the entire country as a whole?
Apart from Ondo states that has been doing very well through its Amotekun, many of the other southwest states are really not doing enough, in my view. There is a need for them to ramp up their work to ensure that these guys do not come into the southwest. And there is a determination on their part Remember the attack on the national park in Oyo State, because some of the forests of this country linked one another. They came into national park in Oyo State and killed park workers. So this kind of terrorist activities is what they want to unleash on the Southwest. If they are able to breach the defense that Ondo State constitutes, then we'll be in trouble, because there are forests in Osun, forests in Ogun State, and they'll be able to come into the Southwest. That is their goal. Already, between 2011 and 2014, we've seen more than 14,779 innocent Nigerians killed by bandits and terrorists. So it makes absolute sense to ensure that they do not come into the Southwest. We need to do much more than we are doing. Most times, government action is reactionary rather than proactive. And in this case, the attackers of the Karana communities actually came with a vehicle-borne IED. They thought that the military will immediately respond so that they can kill them with the vehicle-borne IED. Invariably, that trailer exploded, but without killing the people that it was meant to kill. So these guys are becoming more sophisticated, and for that reason, we also need to step up our game. We should have protected the people a lot better. I know that it's not possible to put security in every community, but the Mahmudawas have been targeting vigilantes in good numbers, especially in Kwara State, been killing them because they know that those vigilantes offer protection to the people in the rural areas, especially places that are underserved by security operatives.
Well, let me take some comments before we move on to a related topic. Abdurrahman Sadiq says this is no longer a distant northern problem. Kwara sits at Nigeria's crossroads. If 162 people can be killed here, then nowhere is safe anymore. Grace Olatunji said, BKO, when the Red Cross confirms figures like this, it means the situation is worse than what we hear officially. These were not human beings, not statistics. Ibrahim Lawal says, the scale of this massacre points to intelligence failure. Attacks of this magnitude don't happen overnight without warning signs being missed. And Olusegun Adebola says, what exactly are our security agencies doing if terrorists can strike for hours and live without resistance? Nigerians deserve answers. And before I move on, Chukwudi says, each massacre is followed by statements and condolences, but very little changes. At what point does empathy translate into transition? Okay, so BKO, speaking of US military, reports have confirmed the presence and expansion